Hello, everyone. Today we're joined by Taj Sohal, the co-founder of Fiixit and chief executive officer at Big Rock Estates Ltd. Taj, how are you doing today?
I'm very well, Harris, and I'd just like to say thank you very much for inviting me on this podcast. Doing very well, had a good weekend, so yeah, all good so far, thanks.
Amazing. The pleasure is all mine to have you on. It's really exciting to have you on, get your takes on the industry, and I'm sure a lot of people will find a lot of value from your experience. So let's dive right into it. Taj, if you wouldn't mind by starting off telling us a little bit about your background, your journey in the early days, and how you got to the position you're currently in.
Okay, so as you mentioned, I'm a sort of co-founder of Fiixit, which is a smart platform for property repairs, maintenance and compliance. And I'm also a portfolio landlord. So those are two different roles, but they are joined because obviously the Fiixit platform is something that I've been working on for the past few years. And that's very much designed to help landlords manage their property portfolios when it comes to doing their repairs. So not only do you save time and money by doing it in a better way, but you also keep your tenants happy because they're being kept in the loop and everything's transparent. So gone are the days when the tenant was saying, I'm not hearing from my landlord about a property repair. Now there's an active dashboard that the tenants can use, the landlords can use, and we also connect it up with the tradesperson as well, right? So Fiixit is all about connecting the landlord, the tradesperson, and the tenant in a way that makes any property repair that needs to be done seamless, right? So that's kind of where we're going with that one. In terms of as a landlord, I've been a landlord for about 30 years. I'm also qualified as an accountant. So in a previous life, I was at various CFO roles. I worked at IBM, so I worked in the tech sector. But my real passion's always been property. And so I was able to build up a property portfolio whilst working. But for the last 4 or 5 years, I've been very much focused on growing the property business. But my real passion now is Fiixit because with all the changes that are happening, that's where I really want to focus my attention on.
Amazing. That's great to hear. And Taj, what does your role look at Fiixit? And I guess, Big Rock Estates, what does day to day look like? And sort of, do they intertwine? Are they completely separate? How does your day run? I guess busy.
I think day to day. So I self-manage my property portfolio, and that can run pretty much without too much interaction. I obviously use my Fiixit repair app to help me manage my property portfolio, but my main emphasis is really on Fiixit. It's a sort of like a technology platform. So we're in the prop tech sector, and we've been doing it for a few years now, and we've been signing up clients and landlords for the past year. So we're getting some good traction, getting some good feedback, and so because it's an operational business, we've got developers that are working on the platform all the time. I've got a product manager who helps to define what we want to do in terms of the next stages of development. We've got people working on marketing and sales as well. For us at the moment, we're a fairly new company, but we're really focusing on getting our message out there to landlords. And the reason why it's really working at the moment for us is because of the renters' rights bill. And in terms of landscape, that's a big concern for lots of landlords because the legislation is giving tenants more rights, which means there's more obligations on landlords. And so we really believe that Fiixit can help landlords to serve their tenants in a way which doesn't get them into any issues around not being compliant and then therefore facing penalties and fines. So most of my time, probably 80% of my time is on Fiixit. The other 20% of my time is on managing my property portfolio, whether it's getting new tenants in, whether it's managing repairs or anything else that's related to that part of the business, but predominantly Fiixit.
Amazing. And I guess for people watching, where, obviously you're a landlord, so there is that connection, but what actually, was the motivating factor of starting Fiixit? Was it you were having problems yourself? Or did you think, look, this industry needs a change, it needs a shake up, it needs to be fixed? And is that why, you thought, look, I can do this better myself? What was actually the motivating force?
I think it's a combination. It's a combination, Harris, of all of those things, right? Because I was in the IT sector, so I could really see how technology can transform a business. I was a landlord, or I am a landlord, and I could kind of see that actually all landlords operate in very different ways, right? Because there's no real regulation, or there wasn't until this new renters' rights bill comes in, which is changing things. So the tenants I was speaking to year in, year out were having a variety of different issues and concerns that would keep coming up. And often it was the fact that, landlords weren't necessarily looking after their tenants in the way that they should be. And that was coming down to poor communication, poor repair management, and that in turn then led to tenants being very dissatisfied, relationships breaking down with the landlord, and then you get this vicious cycle of the landlord blaming the tenant blaming the landlord. And so my focus then became about how can we do this better, right? And so I knew there was a technology solution for it, and I knew that things existed that could allow us to harness technology to make it just a bit more streamlined. So we started off with a very simple thing about saying, so how can a tenant report a repair, and how can the landlord, with just a few clicks on their smartphone, send it to a tradesperson, and how can the job get booked so that all the tenants know about it? So it was all stemming around streamlining, transparency, and effective communication, right? And taking some of that heavy workload around, I've got a repair that needs to be done on a property, but the tenant hasn't even told me which property it's for. So now I've got to find out which tenant is at which property, and then I've got to pass all those details on to a tradesperson, again saying, oh, can you go to this address? So there was just some information there. I thought, if we can get this done smartly, then all of a sudden it's just a few clicks. And that's effectively what we've designed. So our landlords are using it now, and myself, I get a repair coming in, I can check it on my smartphone, and 2 clicks later, I've sent it to the tradesperson, and then I can track it. So I've got a dashboard, I can see how that ticket's progressing, whether it's being booked. If I need to speak to the tenant, I can do that through the chat. Everything's kept in the same place. So it just works. And that's really the driving force, was using technology in a smart way to make it easier for the landlord, and essentially saying to landlords, do you know what, you don't need to go to an agent, you can do this yourself. Because I've done it myself without the platform. Now with the Fiixit platform, it's taking me a fraction of the time to manage my properties.
Amazing. Do you think, again, on expanding on your point there, is that, the comparison would be, for example, property management company, or for example, passing it over to somebody else to manage. So do you think this actually solves the problem and allows more money at the end of the year in your pocket? Whereas, you might outsource to a management fee and be paying 7, 10, 15%. And, or does that solve both problems? Not just the stress of management, but also the financial side as well?
Well, absolutely, Harris. I think you've really nailed it there. Look, at the end of the day, we all work to make money, right? And we don't necessarily want to be giving a big chunk of our profit to an agent. I mean, there are some situations, I'm not going to say, there are some situations where maybe an agent is the most suitable person to manage your properties. But where you can, there's absolutely no reason why you can't self-manage, right? And it just takes a little bit of know-how. It just takes the know-how in terms of how to advertise your property. And I'll give a little plug to OpenRent, who I use to put my properties on Rightmove and Zoopla. So I can put my property on the market for not very much money, right? £50, £49, I think it is. And it's on Rightmove and Zoopla. I get inquiries through. I can then pick the tenants I want to pick. I pick the best tenants that I think are most suitable to I can interact with and engage with. I then use Fiixit to manage the property repairs. I mean, it's really as simple as that, right? So it can be done, and you can, rather than giving, like you said, 10% away of your rent to an agent, which could quite easily be the best part of maybe £200 or something. It's a significant amount of money. It adds up. And so this is about being controlled. And I think when you give it to an agent, also, you're kind of maybe giving away a bit of control. And I think you should only be a landlord if you are, you can take control of it. If you want to be a landlord that is very much hands off, then fine, do it hands off. But if you want to make some margin and some profit in this sector, you've got to be a little bit hands on. And so this is designed to give you the tools to be hands on and make more money.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I guess what I would, categorize it is, for example, an investor. If you purchase a property and then you hand it off to somebody else to take care of and deal with the day-to-day and everything, you're pretty much just investing at that point. But if you actually want to be a landlord and get the best returns on your investment and actually take care of the property like your own child so it can reap the fruits of, your labor, then you have to be a lot more involved. And, you have to be able to maybe not cut corners and actually roll your sleeves up. And I guess that's where this kind of solution, Fiixit, comes in to actually aid that. So it pairs up really well, because nowadays there is a lot going on in property. There's repairs, there's renewals, there's contracts, there's lots of going on. So if there's a solution that can house everything together, then it's a no-brainer. And if that leaves more money in your pocket at the end of the year, then that should be putting a smile on everyone's face.
Yeah, no, I mean, so we've got landlords that have got a few properties, right? And we've got landlords that have got 200 plus, right? And those that have got like 200 plus, they've got their own maintenance teams. So for them, it's not that they don't want to do the repairs. They just need something that can do it efficiently for them, right?
Yeah.
Because you can't have it on an Excel spreadsheet. You can't have a paper-based system. That just is so old school.
Gone are the days.
You are just going to be wasting money and time, and also not being able to do the work on time, right? Because you're going to be inefficient, right?
Absolutely.
So the landlords that have got big portfolios that have started to use Fiixit, for them it's been transformational, right? They've gone from a sort of like a paper-based, Excel-based platform where it's not in real time. So information is getting loaded, but it becomes old very quickly. Whereas this, you think of it, you can operate off your desktop, you can operate it from your smartphone or from your tablet, you can operate it remotely. So you can be on site, seeing your properties and looking to see what the next jobs are. You can assign jobs to your team. Okay, John, I want you to go and do this. Rob, you go and fix this problem. You can just assign it to them through the platform. Everybody's got their own to-do list, right? So each one of your maintenance teams, they can't get confused about what they're doing because you've told them. And then the job gets booked in, the tenant knows about it. So the tenant knows who's doing the job and when it's going to be done. And you know who's doing the job and when it's going to get done. And then you can find out whether your guys did the job on the date that they said they were going to do the job.
Yeah.
That's simple, right? It's really quite simple. I mean,
that's how it should be. That's how it should be. Life's already hectic enough. There's already too many problems going on. Nowadays people want simplicity, and if Fiixit brings that, then it's a no-brainer. Because myself, I'm property management background. 5 years property management, so I'm used to doing everything old school, pen, paper. Writing schedules out. Come pick the schedule up. Here's your schedule for the day. Versus actually having technology and software that can streamline it. So I can attest to the benefit of cost saving and also simplicity. So, it's a big breakthrough, and it's amazing stuff that you do.
Yeah. I mean, initially when we were sort of speaking to landlords, the first hurdle we had was landlords would say, well, I'm using WhatsApp. I'm using WhatsApp to communicate with my tenants. Why do I need why do I need to fix it? And so we went back to the drawing board and we thought, right, okay, so the message isn't getting through to these landlords, right? We need to kind of tackle it from a different perspective. And then when we showed them the comparison between, okay, so we're not saying don't use WhatsApp, but WhatsApp can only do so much and Fiixit does a whole load more, right? Because with WhatsApp, you're going to have multiple threads of discussions. You're going to lose track of what was said when it was said. You're not going to be able to forward it onto a tradesperson easy. You're going to have to copy and paste it. You're not going to have multiple groups set up with tradespeople and the tenants and yourself. It just becomes unmanageable. And then the other thing is that if I said to a landlord who uses WhatsApp, okay, so how many repairs have you got in progress at the moment? They wouldn't be able to tell me. They'd have to, right? And then how do you communicate with the tenants? Okay, we send them a message, but do you send a message to all of the tenants or just the one tenant that's reported the repair? All these things come out of the woodwork. And what we found is that when we actually explain the story of what Fiixit does, they then think, okay, yeah, I think you've probably got a good point there in terms of we can see the benefit of it now. Because I say, look, if you're a landlord, your time is your money, right?
Absolutely.
And why would you want to spend any more time on sending repair requests out to tradespeople and then chasing them up when you can just say to the tradesperson, right, here's the details of the tenant. This repair needs to be done. I'm okay for you to go ahead and do it or quote for it. Speak to the tenant, get access, and either get the job done or give me a call or drop me a message within Fiixit to tell me how much it's going to cost. That's all you want. And you can do it from anywhere. So I've been on holiday and I've been able to manage my property repairs. And even better than that, I can be on holiday and I can ask either one of my co-workers or a family member to say, look, they have their own access as admin users. I can just switch off completely and knowing that the tenants don't need to know anything. They can still report their repairs. Somebody else is picking it up and dealing. If you're doing WhatsApp, they're going to be calling you. And the landlords that I've spoken to, when I say to them, you won't get a call again from your tenants unless it's a real emergency or something really bad, then they say, that's great. Because, it's personal time, right? You don't want to get a call at 9 o'clock in the evening. You just say, if it's on Fiixit, if it's an emergency, guess what? In the room, Fiixit, you've got the option to mark it as an emergency, and the landlord will get an SMS text message, right, to alert them. But we've kind of been quite smart, so we said, it's only an emergency if it hits certain criteria. The tenant can still mark it an emergency, but they're asked a couple of questions, because some tenants will say, oh, everything's an emergency.
Absolutely.
And so we've kind of thought through that as well. So the landlords that are using it, their stress levels have gone down, their free time has gone up,
Gone up.
and they're just saying, well, actually, you know what? We're not finding it half as hard as we used to. And now we've got more time to either go and play golf, spend time with the family, go on holiday, or we actually spend our time now looking at other investment properties.
Absolutely.
When you talk about the benefits,
Long list.
they're numerous, because it just gives you the option to actually think about what you want to do with your time, right? Don't spend time chasing your tail, make it simple, and spend time on things you want to spend time on, whether it's leisure time or business. You'll be more effective.
Amazing. That's great. Really appreciate that. So, Taj, if we now nicely transition onto industry trends, what are you sort of seeing some trends and some major shifts in the property industry? It could be property as a whole, it could be within property maintenance, could be, with just landlords and renters. What are some big shifts and transition you're seeing? And what are some stuff you're excited for? Or what are some perhaps you're a little bit on the fence about?
Well, I mentioned it earlier, and there's the Renters' Rights Bill, which is currently going through Parliament. The last Conservative government, it was called the Renters' Reform Bill then, and then when Labour came in, they renamed it to the Renters' Rights Bill. It's gone through the Commons, it's going through the House of Lords at the moment, and it will probably go on the statute books by maybe July time, and may come into effect a few months later. So it's imminent, and there are some significant shifts in the legislation around how the landlord and the tenant interact, and it goes from all the way from the type of contract, and the contracts now used to be fixed term contracts. You can't have fixed terms, they're all periodic, which means effectively that from day one the tenant can serve notice. I think after the first 4 months they can serve notice, but they can serve 2 months notice effectively. A tenant at any point during the tenancy can say, look, do you know what, Mr. Landlord, thank you very much, but I'm giving you 2 months notice, I want to leave. On the flip side, the landlord used to be able to serve what they call a no-fault eviction on the tenants. They can't do that anymore. They've got to have a reason to evict a tenant. They've got to have a reason for putting the rent up. So it's quite a major shift. There's a lot of discussion on it in the industry. There's lots of people doing webinars and podcasts and so forth. And the key thing is that people aren't quite sure how hard it's going to hit them, right? Because of, you kind of can be really scared and think it's going to be a disaster. Or you can think, well, actually, if I'm a good landlord, I should be okay, right? I won't have a problem. And the reason why we're getting a lot of traction with customers around Fiixit is because there's one element around sort of like a property redress, right? So if a tenant is not happy with the way a landlord is managing their property repairs, it comes under the Decent Home Standard and AWAB's law, which is to do with damp and mould. It's essentially giving the tenants some rights with regards to going to an independent ombudsman or to the council and saying, my landlord hasn't fixed this and it's been like 2 months. And what can happen is that the landlord can now get fined, right? And there can be penalties, right? And you still have to put the work, right? And also the tenant can claim a rent repayment order of up to 2 years. So depending on how bad it is, the landlord could find themselves, if they're on the wrong side, they could find themselves in really big trouble, right? And so what we're doing for landlords now is educating them around the Renters' Rights Bill, and in particular around their obligations around repairs, and saying that if you use Fiixit, first of all, you can use it to attract the right types of tenants, right? That's a tick. The second thing you can do is that you can document everything. So if a repair is needed, it gets recorded, your response gets recorded, and everything else gets recorded. So it helps them in cases where they may be in front of the council explaining themselves. They can say, hey, look, this is what happened in this particular situation, and I've got all the evidence to the paper trail, effectively, right? So the industry is shifting, and it's a big major shift. I don't think we've had anything this significant in living memory on landlord and tenant, right? There's been introduction of other bits like around deposit schemes and not being able to charge fees for agency fees for as an introduction or whatever. So there's been things like that have been coming into law as well, but this is a big major shift to protect tenants. And I'd go as far as saying I'm not against the bill. I think if the bill is helping to balance the rights and obligations of tenants and landlords, that's not a bad thing. I think there just could be some unintended consequences where landlords who, not negligence, but just maybe they just didn't know through ignorance, they could find themselves on the wrong end of a compliance issue. And for some landlords, I mean, the margins are thin. They could find themselves basically having to pay, £7,000 penalties and fines, and it was an honest mistake, but you just don't know which way it's going to go. So I think it's very early, but there are lots of landlords I've spoken to that are concerned. And so I'd say those that are professional landlords are really doing their homework and making sure they've got the processes in place. I think those accidental landlords or landlords with maybe just a few properties, they need to get the education. It's out there. You can Google renters' rights and there'll be plenty of people giving lots of advice. I'm not saying all of it is accurate, but if you go to a trusted source, maybe to your like the NRLA or some other housing association or industry body that you're part of, they should be giving you an up-to-date position on what the requirements are. So in terms of major shift, that's the big one, right? And I think that basically overshadows everything else that's kind of happening.
Do you think something like this bill is actually maybe putting doubts in landlords' minds about actually being a landlord? Is it worth it? And perhaps looking at other means of investing in property, be it, for example, buying and selling their property, or for example maybe short stay, or for example investing abroad. Is that perhaps a trend you're seeing when speaking to people?
Yeah, for sure. I think people are exploring different ways to either exit or to diversify. Those that are in the business for the long term, I'd call them sort of maybe professional landlords. I can't see them leaving necessarily because they may have built their portfolio over many years. There might be, capital gains tax issues to exit, and so they just may choose to stay in. But I do know of landlords that are maybe just saying, you know what, I'm really not a landlord. I'm just an accidental landlord, and as much as I like being a landlord, and it's quite nice to have some good tenants in your property, I can't run the risk of falling foul. I just don't want the headache, and I can't afford to take the risk, and therefore, I think I'll just exit. And if you've got one property, maybe, or two properties, and you think, I'll cash out. I might pay a bit of tax, but I can pay my mortgage off, or I can go on holiday, I can retire, that sort of stuff. So it depends where you are as a landlord in terms of how many properties you've got and what you want to do. I see landlords falling into two camps. Those that are like your small accidental landlords, they may have a slightly different view. They may hang in there, see how it plays out. I see other landlords that are saying, there's an opportunity. There's going to be fewer landlords in the market. There's some properties coming up for sale. Let's snap them up at a good price because landlords are getting nervous. So there might be some good deals in the marketplace, and they feel confident that they can manage it. So, I spoke to a company this morning, and again, a big student landlord, and again, nearly 200 properties, right? So these people are not going to just sell up. They'll happily take on 1, 2, 5, 10 properties because they already have a management system, and they were looking to use Fiixit, and we're going to have a discussion with them over the next couple of weeks. So they're looking at ways to streamline their operations to make sure that they don't fall foul of the legislation.
Amazing. No, that's great. So that's a very good discussion about obviously technology and obviously different shifts and whatnot. A big shift, I guess, a lot of people are noticing as well within property, and I guess a lot of the different niches is social media. So, how important has social media been for your career and perhaps Fiixit as a whole? And how are you using the power of social media to actually drive Fiixit forward?
Yeah, so I think if you're a landlord and you've got a significant portfolio size, I think there's room for social media because you want to get, especially if you're a student landlord, you probably want to get a good presence with your student tenants, maybe using Instagram or Facebook. It just gives you a good market. And you can sort of market your properties. Again, you want to stand out from the crowd, right? So, the bigger landlords will kind of have a good website. They'll have some good posts going up there. And they may do some competitions for tenants as well, just to keep them engaged and just to get their name known. And I think that's proved useful. I mean, I've got a website which I use to sort of showcase who I am as a landlord, right? I mean, if a tenant's going to come to me and say, I'm interested in your property, I want them to know who my company is. What is Big Rock Estates? How does it operate? What's its mission? And what sort of service levels do we offer? Just to give them that level of comfort. So I think, again, there's a market there to do good social media if you want to attract the right tenants. And bearing in mind what I've just said about the Renters' Rights Bill, I think it's going to become really even more important to attract the right type of tenant, right? Because it's going to be hard to get rid of a tenant. So you're going to have to put a bit more effort and energy into attracting the right ones in the first place, right?
Yeah.
So if you want to be smart, then I would promote your brand, check the tenants that are coming and looking at the property and being more selective than you probably have been in the past. And again, going back to Fiixit, our landlords are using Fiixit as a marketing tool to tenants to say, look, not only are you going to get this lovely property, which is very well managed and maintained, but we're using Fiixit to manage and track all your repairs. That gives a tenant comfort, right? So if a tenant's choosing between two properties that are very similar, he's always going for the one with Fiixit, right?
Absolutely.
Because it offers them something that gives them that little bit of comfort, right?
Absolutely.
And then with regards to social media on Fiixit, that's because we're trying to reach out to customers, right? We're trying to get brand presence. Social media is absolutely key for that. So, we've got Instagram, we've got Facebook, we're doing LinkedIn posts, right? We're doing, SEO on our website, blog posts. That's because it's really important to get the message out. And for us, we're very clear about what our product does and the benefits it has, but we need to articulate that and get that message out to the landlords. But landlords are our customers, but we're reaching out to tenants because we want to make them aware that Fiixit's a great platform. Maybe ask your landlord to create an account and sign up. We're also marketing to tradespeople because we're creating a trade network on Fiixit, which will allow tradespeople to sign up. And then if you've got a property repair, currently Fiixit allows you to put your own tradespeople on there, but if you want to use a Fiixit trade network, then you can use that as well. And you say, I need a plumber. There's a Fiixit registered plumber in the area, and it can work that way as well. So again, we know what the pain points are, or we think we know what the pain points are for landlords, and sometimes it's can't get hold of the good tradesperson, right? And so we're saying we don't want to just give you any tradesperson. We want to give you a tradesperson that likes to do work for landlords, right? Because they'll be familiar with the platform. They'll want to get a good rating within Fiixit, so more landlords will use them, and that ecosystem will hopefully take off in its own right. But social media for us is a big play, absolutely. And it's I've learned a lot in the last year. Of course, I maybe didn't know that much a couple of years ago, but my knowledge on social media marketing has increased over time, and it's a great way to get out there. But again, there's a lot of crowded space out there, so doing it right is key, right? So you can't just do it. You've got to have a bit of a plan, and you've got to have a good company that supports you to do it.
Absolutely. Do you think education and getting yourself out there is a I guess the main problem for a lot of businesses? Because what I tend to see is businesses have a great solution and perhaps the best solution for a lot of people, but they're just not seen, or they're not heard, or they're not educating people, and they're not coming across as the experts. Because if you present yourself as an expert and you show people you have the solution, then people will naturally gravitate towards you. So do you think that's perhaps your next challenge with Fiixit, is actually becoming more aware, actually saying to people, hey, we're the best solution, and we're here? Is that perhaps the next stage for yourself?
I think you're right there, Harris. I mean, why should a landlord come to Fiixit, right? It's a software platform, right? So our story is very much based on the fact that I'm a landlord of 30 years. I've got the experience. I've spoken to lots of landlords. We've developed a product based on need and feedback. But more than that, people buy from people, right?
Absolutely.
And we have over the last year or so, or even longer than that, really majored on understanding what's happening in the wider sort of landscape of legislation and rules and so forth, right? And that gives us the benefit of creating the right product, but it also helps us to get the message out the right way. And by that I mean, we could just have a very dry message around Fiixit. It does your property repairs maintenance. But the real story is that it transforms the way you interact with your tenants. It transforms the way you are able to manage all your repairs in a cost and time effective way. It transforms the way that you are able to keep an audit trail of what you've done, a record, a history log, something that can help to demonstrate that you have done the right things at the right time, right? It's that messaging which is linked to what's happening in the wider marketplace around legislation to make sure that the message is right. And absolutely, we need to be the experts, right? We can't not be the experts because we're living and breathing it every day. We've got contacts with lots of people that are in the sector and in the industry, and we want our landlords to do really well and be successful. So our mission is to not only produce the best platform for landlords to manage their property repairs and compliance, absolutely big tick, but we also want to be their ally in terms of how do you stay on the right side of the law, come to us for an opinion, for an assessment, come to us so that we can share with you what's happening and we can give you the best advice, and come to us and tell us what you want from the product, because we will then make those updates, right? Because we're in listening mode, and all good startups are always based on you have to listen to your customers, and we've had some great feedback from our landlords so far, and that's really helping to shape the way the product is looking. So that's kind of how it's working at the
That's
moment.
amazing. I think it's important, rather than being a service, being a solution, right?
Yeah.
Rather than just anything that, anyone can use, you're actually being a solution to an industry-wide or a macro, problem that a lot of people are having. So I think that's very important, and I think Vixit does it really well. So that's very, very good to hear. So I guess now, if we narrowing down, I guess just discussing on the business, what's working really well for the business at the minute, be it within marketing, sales, operations, things like that, and what are some challenges you're having, and perhaps some areas that are perhaps holding you back from growing to the next level.
What's going really well so far is that having a good team. I remember when I used to work for IBM, and people always just gone about, oh, it's all about the people, it's all about the team, right? And you used to kind of think, yeah, right. My God, when you run your own company, it is all about the people, right? They make the biggest difference ever. So having a great team, like-minded people, maybe different, but like-minded in terms of we all want the same thing, but everybody should bring something different to the table, right? Listening to your team, being energized and motivated, and everything you do is for how do we make Fiixit better? How do we achieve what we want to achieve? That's the strength of a small company over a large company, right? Is
Yeah.
because it's the success of a small startup, right? Is closely linked to the people that are there, right? So what's working well? Got a great team, absolutely fantastic. Got great developers. My co-founder's great. Got sales and marketing guys great. It's really good, right? So really good in that sense. What else is good is that having a good network of people that you can work through. So obviously having a good client base, but also, we've gone out to banks, we've gone out to accountants, my accounting network, my banking network, and we've gone out to other landlord events, right? So working your network and getting their buy-in is important, because they then sell the message for you as well, right? So to corporate bankers, it's how do you give a value add to your landlord client? Well, talk about things that are in the marketplace. Maybe talk about Fiixit. So I've got a big presentation with one of the large banks that services lots of landlords, and their corporate bank managers are going to then go out and sell the message, right? So we've got lots of little good avenues going through there. The tough bit is actually reaching the sort of like the wider public through social media and SEO, right? Because, it's hard to get people's attention. People need to really be engaged in what you're talking about. And so we've worked out a couple of strategies in terms of how do we pitch to people, how do we market to people. We're collaborating with My Deposits and Total Property, doing a webinar with them, again, around the Renters' Rights Bill and the importance of property maintenance, right? So collaboration is really important in using your network. The challenge is obviously when you're trying to go out and you're just doing like or pay per click, Google ads, that's tough, right? Because people's attention span is very low, and are you hitting the right audience? We know that when we speak to a group full of people that are in the right headspace, as in they're a landlord, they want to find a solution, they're looking for something, they're not quite sure what it is they're looking for, but they know they want to do things better, then we're on the money, right? Then the engagement is really high, because we offer something, and people can go onto the website and have a look at the pricing, but it's so inexpensive compared to what you're actually getting, right? It's just a really easy sell once the person's in the right headspace, and that's our challenge. So that's why I said getting the message across, and like I said, people buying from people is key thing as well. But partnerships are going well, and we just need to work on those. But the hard sell is if you're doing it to somebody that's you think is a good potential, but hasn't quite isn't at that place at the moment. We work on it, but you don't you don't convert every single lead. But our target is to actually hone in on those groups of people that we think are people that actually are ready to do something differently. And the renters' rights bill is a really good reason for people to think about it.
Amazing. And I guess this, connects trends really well as well as with business. And I'm sure, you've heard about it and you're perhaps already quite invested in it is, AI. Big shift at the minute is AI. A lot of the things it can do, streamlining operations, cutting, your workload in half and the power it can bring. So I guess how important has AI been to your business and I guess its success, or is AI something you're actually looking into and think is something that is actually going to drive the business forward?
It's definitely going to be there to drive the business forward. I think all tech companies will adopt AI in some form or another, right? I think the big unknown is how to make it, how to get AI to do what you want it to do, right? And what's the art of the possible, right? That's the big question I'd have is AI is definitely on our agenda. We can see huge benefits from whether it's automating a particular flow or giving a response to a repair request. There's all sorts of things in my mind that we've discussed as a team around how we could integrate it. And I think it will give huge benefit to landlords. We haven't got it within Fiixit at the moment, but I genuinely believe that AI is the next big thing. And I think it's something you've really got to adopt at the right time and in the right way. I think it'll be a real differentiator between different products. If I had a crystal ball, I'd say, okay, in a year's time or in 2 years' time, it's going to look like this. I just don't think anybody quite knows. But all I know is that it's pretty damn good. It can do amazing things. How it's going to adapt into certain sort of like technology platforms, all I can see is there's going to be a lot of upside, but there's going to be a lot of finding out as we go along, I think.
Learning that goes
learning along the way.
And that's really great. So, Taj, if we now come on to future goals, what does the future look like for yourself in the next 6 months to 12 months? And what are some goals you're looking to achieve, I guess, personally, and what are some goals you're looking to achieve company wide? Where would you want to be in 12 months?
I think on a personal level, my objective when we started off Fiixit was to really start something new, right, and go on a bit of a journey. So for me, it's about personal development and creating networks, finding solutions, and being an industry lead, right? And providing value to landlords, right? And being seen as the expert, and having a product that actually serves the landlord community in the right way. So for me, the personal journey is growing with the product and developing, how we interact with landlords and how we get the message out to people, and trying to inspire people as well to not be afraid to take a leap and follow their ambition, because that's what I would say I've done. Is that I could quite easily have not done this, but it was a passion of mine, and I wanted to pursue it. And as like I said, I've trained as an accountant, probably the most conservative job you can do, and I've gone into something like this, which is really interesting, fast paced. Not quite sure what's going to happen next week, but the journey's been good because, like I said, the team's been great and we've got a great product and we're getting some great feedback. So we're in a nice sweet spot, right, in that sense. In terms of the business, for us, it's all about growth. I mean, that's the only thing that really matters now. It's growth, but with good product development. So we are developing the product that meets the needs of our landlord community. The growth is the fact that we want more and more landlords to come on board so we can help them in how they manage their property repairs. Growing the business is just a way of making sure we've got a really good community, right? We've got a Fiixit community of landlords like-minded who can all help each other to sort of like make sure that they're doing things in the right way. So growth from a business perspective is the target for the next 6 months to a year, but we're on a really nice trajectory because we're just getting some really good traction with the landlords that we're doing demos with. We're getting some great feedback. We've signed up some really big landlord clients. We've signed up some small, medium-sized landlords as well. Getting the message out there and growing is what we're doing at the moment.
Amazing. That's great to hear. Now, I guess finally, if I can get your biggest piece of advice that you wish you knew when you started your journey, that could potentially change the trajectory of someone's life listening in.
I would say, and you always learn things after the event. Either you've learned them through your own mistakes, you think, crikey, I wish I'd done this differently. Or like I did, you watch a YouTube video about something, you're thinking, God, I wish I'd watched this YouTube video 6 months ago. the best bit of advice I can say is that being innovative, you can take the risk out of it by doing your homework, right?
Right.
So if you've got a good idea, what you need to do is really test it on people that are going to be your potential customers, so that you are in a position to actually sort of do your concept and get it validated as early as possible, right? And if you do that, then you'll make some sort of adjustments as you go along based on what feedback you're getting. You'll also provide some evidence of, well, is it commercially viable? You know, and it may be that actually you've got a great idea, but nobody actually will ever pay for it. And now it's not easy to get that feedback from people, but I would encourage you to get at least sort of like, 5 to 10 people that you can go to that you trust, or people that are in the sector, and just say, look, just want to run something past you. I'm thinking of doing this. What do you think? The reason why most people don't do it is because they think, if I talk about it, I'm giving my trade secrets away. But the fact is that you've got no trade secrets. It's just an idea, right? These ideas, even if you've got a great idea, they don't turn into reality overnight. They take time. They take money. They take effort, right? So don't be afraid to share your idea because you think, oh, somebody's going to take my idea and do it themselves, right? I would go to trusted people and get their view on, no, I'm thinking about this. What do you think, right? You've got to find the right people. There's some great YouTube videos out there from like startup companies in in Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
And they just give you a really good insight into what should you do and how should you do it, right? Because you don't want to keep putting money into something that's not going to work. And so like my mistake was something I learned was I thought as a landlord, I was the best customer to come up with the solution. And fortunately, it just took a little bit longer. But I wish I'd got advice from more landlords first as well, because I could have shaped the product slightly differently. We could have been a little bit faster in terms of what we implemented, right? And that's kind of the big learning point for me. And trust me, I mean, everybody says the same thing. Anybody that's been in business, right? You will make mistakes. Don't ever think you're going to go through and create a fancy product and not make a mistake. You will make mistakes. The question is, learn from people that have gone through it before. Take their advice. People are out there to give advice, right? You'd be surprised. You think, oh, people love to give advice, right? So if they can, they'll give you 10 minutes of their time and give you advice. Learn from what people have told you. If you do make a mistake, that's fine too. Don't be afraid to course correct and go down a different path. But at the same time, if you believe in your product and your customers are telling you that you need it, even if you hit a couple of obstacles along the way, don't be afraid to carry on and persist. It's a really fine balance, because on the one hand, I'm saying to you, persist. On the other hand, I'm saying to you, pivot and change if it's not working. It really just depends on the situation, but you will know. So what I'm saying is that keep your eyes open, talk to people, listen, and don't be afraid to change course. Don't be afraid to take advice, and don't be afraid to make a mistake. I mean, they all say, if you make a mistake, learn from it, move on, right? And that's kind of the approach I would take. It's not easy, but it's not impossible. It's just hard work, and nobody should ever say to you, "Oh, it's a breeze," because it's hard work.
Very well said, Ted. Very well said. Well, thank you very much for that. Really, really appreciate your time. I've really enjoyed the conversation, and I'm sure a lot of people listening are really going to enjoy it and find a lot of value in it. So thank you very much for coming on. I'm sure everyone has really enjoyed. So yeah, any final closing thoughts before we wrap up?
Like I said, I think a lot happening in this sort of like the rental sector. People shouldn't put their head in the sand. This is a classic thing of, there's a big shift. Go to people that you trust, find out what's going on, and change what you're currently doing if you think you need to make life easier for yourself. Think of it as an opportunity. People still need places to live in. They're not going anywhere. Don't be the landlord that sticks his head in the sand, then gets caught out and gets fined £7,000. Don't be one of those landlords.
That's going to definitely ruin your day, isn't it? So thank you, everyone, and I guess we'll catch you next time.